My knees hit the cold marble floor at 6 a.m., scrub brush in hand, watching my son's expensive Italian loafers step over me like I was part of the furniture. He didn't say good morning. He never did anymore. "Mom, you missed a spot near the baseboards," Marcus called over his shoulder, briefcase already in hand. "Jennifer's losing her mind about tonight. Don't screw this up." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. 3 months. That's how long I'd been living in their pristine suburban palace, sleeping in the room that used to be their home gym, wearing the plain black uniform Jennifer bought me so you look presentable when we have company. 3 months since I'd lost my apartment, lost my savings, lost everything except the last shred of pride I was swallowing every single day. "I won't screw it up," I whispered to the empty hallway. My weathered hands that used to sign contracts and shake hands with mayors, were raw from bleach. 63 years old, and I was scrubbing my own son's floors while he pretended I didn't exist. The kitchen was worse. "Eleanor?" Jennifer's voice cracked through the air like a whip. Not Mom, not even hey. Just my first name, sharp and dismissive. "The silver better be perfect tonight. Do you understand? Perfect." She stood in the doorway, yoga pants that cost more than my monthly Social Security check, inspecting the dining table I'd already set twice. "I polished every piece," I said quietly. She ran one manicured finger along a fork, held it up to the light like she was checking for diamonds. "You know who's coming tonight, don't you?" "Your husband's CEO." "Our CEO," she corrected, eyes narrowing. "The man who decides whether Marcus gets promoted or stays stuck in middle management forever. So tonight needs to be flawless. The food, the table, the atmosphere, everything. And I need to be invisible," I thought. That part she didn't have to say. I'd heard it all week. How important this dinner was, how Mr. Castellano could make or break Marcus's entire career. How Jennifer had been planning this menu for months, researching his favorite wines, his dietary preferences, even the temperature he liked rooms kept at. "I understand," I said. "Do you?" She stepped closer, and I could smell her expensive perfume, the kind that came in bottles smaller than my thumb. "Because if you embarrass us tonight, if you say the wrong thing or look at him wrong or breathe too loud, I swear to God." "Jennifer." Marcus appeared behind her, tie perfectly knotted. "She gets it. Don't you, Mom?" There it was. Mom. Only when he needed something. "I get it," I repeated. They swept out together, her hand possessive on his arm, leaving me standing in their designer kitchen, surrounded by ingredients I'd be cooking for the next 6 hours. I looked at my reflection in the polished silver. Gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, lines around my eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago, uniform that hung loose on my frame because I'd stopped eating much, kept forgetting meals between the laundry and the cooking, and the endless cleaning. How did I get here? But I knew. I knew exactly how. My husband died. The grief swallowed me whole. I stopped working, stopped answering calls, stopped being the person I'd been for 40 years. And by the time I came up for air, the savings were gone, the contracts had dried up, and my son, my brilliant, ambitious son, looked at me like I was a burden instead of his mother. "You can stay with us?" he'd said 3 months ago, voice tight. "Just temporarily, until you get back on your feet." Jennifer had smiled that smile that never touched her eyes. And somehow, temporarily became me scrubbing toilets while their kids screamed in the next room and they went to charity galas. The doorbell rang at exactly 7 p.m. I smoothed my apron with shaking hands. The roast was perfect. The table gleamed. The wine was breathing at exactly 68 degrees. Jennifer appeared, grabbing my arm hard enough to leave marks. You answer the door, you smile, you take his coat, and then you disappear into the kitchen. Are we clear? Crystal. And Eleanor? Her nails dug deeper. Try not to look so pathetic. It reflects badly on us. She released me, and I walked to the front door, every step feeling like I was walking to my own funeral. Just get through tonight. Just survive one more dinner where you're treated like hired help instead of family. I turned the handle. The door swung open, and my heart stopped cold. The man standing on the porch, tall, silver-haired, expensive suit that probably cost more than a car, was staring at me like he'd seen a ghost rise from the grave. I knew that face, those eyes. Richard Castellano. Oh God. Eleanor? His voice cracked on my name. Eleanor Chen? Behind me, I heard Jennifer's wine glass hit the entry table with a sharp clink. Marcus made a sound like someone had punched him in the stomach. And Richard, the CEO they'd been worshipping, the man who held my son's entire future in his hands, stepped across the threshold and pulled me into an embrace that made my knees nearly buckle. I thought you were dead, he whispered against my hair. We all thought when you disappeared, Eleanor. Where have you been? I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Because Richard Castellano knew exactly who I used to be. And judging by the looks on Marcus and Jennifer's faces, they were about to find out everything I'd been hiding. Eleanor Chen. Richard said my name again, louder this time, like he needed to hear it out loud to believe it was real. The Eleanor Chen. Standing in a... His eyes dropped to my uniform, and something dark flickered across his face. What the hell is going on here? I couldn't answer. My throat had closed up completely. Marcus recovered first, corporate smile snapping into place like a mask. Mr. Castellano, welcome, welcome. I see you've met my mother. The word came out strangled. Mom, why don't you take Mr. Castellano's coat and... Your mother? Richard's voice could have frozen fire. He didn't move. His hand was still on my shoulder, and I could feel it trembling, or maybe that was me trembling. Marcus, your mother is Eleanor Chen? Yes, sir. She's staying with us temporarily while she scrubs your floors in a maid's uniform? The silence that followed could have shattered glass. Jennifer made a small noise, something between a gasp and a whimper. Her champagne flute was wobbling on the entry table, where she'd set it down, expensive bubbles going flat, while she stared at us like we'd both grown second heads. I don't understand, she managed. You two know each other? Richard's laugh was bitter. Know each other? Lady Eleanor Chen designed half the skyline you see from your bedroom window. The Chen Performing Arts Center? That's hers. The waterfront development that won international awards? Hers. He stopped, turned back to me. Eleanor, what are you doing here? What happened? Tell him. Tell him everything. Tell him how your own son treats you like garbage. But the words wouldn't come. I lost my apartment, I whispered. Marcus and Jennifer were kind enough to take me in. Kind enough. Richard repeated the words like they tasted rotten. His eyes swept the pristine entryway, the marble floors I'd scrubbed this morning, the fresh flowers I'd arranged, the silver I'd polished until my fingers ached. How long have you been staying here? 3 months. And in those 3 months, they had you wearing a uniform? Cleaning? Serving? Marcus stepped forward, hands raised. Mr. Castellano, I think there's been a misunderstanding. My mother wanted to help around the house. She insisted on... I'm sure she did. Richard's corporate smile was back, but it had teeth now. Sharp ones. Marcus, why don't we skip the bullshit? Your mother, one of the most brilliant architects of our generation, a woman who built a career from nothing and changed this city's entire landscape, has been living in your house for 3 months, and you didn't think to mention it? Not once? I didn't think it was relevant to... Not relevant? Richard's voice rose. Do you have any idea who you've had scrubbing your toilets? Jennifer found her voice. It came out small and tight. We didn't know she was. We thought she was just... Just what? Richard turned to her. Just some broke old woman you could exploit? That's not fair. Jennifer's face was turning red, that splotchy red she got when she was angry, but trying to stay polite. We gave her a place to stay. We didn't have to do that. A place to stay. Richard looked at me again. Eleanor, where are you sleeping? The guest room, I said quietly. Show me. Mr. Castellano, the dinner is ready, and I really think we should... Marcus tried. Show me. I led him down the hallway, acutely aware of Marcus and Jennifer following behind like guilty children called to the principal's office. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the doorknob. The room was tiny, barely big enough for the narrow twin bed and the plastic dresser Jennifer had bought at a discount store. My clothes, 3 uniforms, 2 pairs of jeans, 1 sweater hung on a wire rack in the corner, no windows. The walls were still painted with the ghost outlines of where gym equipment used to be bolted to the floor. Richard stood in the doorway for a long moment. Then he turned to Marcus with an expression that made my son take an actual step backward. "Your mother," Richard said, voice deadly quiet, "designed the headquarters where you work. Did you know that?" Marcus's face went gray. "What?" "The Castellano Tower. 20 years ago, my father commissioned Eleanor Chen to design our flagship building. She spent 2 years on that project. Every detail, every beam, every window that was her vision. You walk through those doors every single day, Marcus, and you never once thought to ask your mother about her career, her accomplishments?" I didn't." "You didn't care," Richard finished. "You saw a broke old woman and decided she was only worth whatever labor you could squeeze out of her." "That's not true," Jennifer pushed forward. "We were helping her. She had nowhere else to go." "And you made sure she earned her keep, didn't you?" Richard's watch caught the light as he gestured platinum, expensive, the kind that cost more than 6 months of my Social Security combined. "Tell me, Jennifer, when's the last time you said thank you? When's the last time you treated her like family instead of staff?" Jennifer's mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. I wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor and never resurface. This wasn't how I'd imagined tonight going. I'd planned to serve dinner, stay quiet, let Marcus have his big moment with his CEO. I never imagined Richard would recognize me. Never imagined he'd care. "Eleanor," Richard's voice gentled when he looked at me. "Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you reach out? We've been trying to find you for years." "I didn't think anyone would remember me." "Remember you? Eleanor? You vanished. After Thomas died, you just disappeared. No forwarding address, no phone number, nothing. We thought something terrible had happened." Thomas. My husband's name felt like a knife between my ribs. "I couldn't work anymore," I whispered. "After he died, I couldn't. I lost everything. The grief was too big. And by the time I could breathe again, it was too late. The contracts were gone. The savings were gone. I was just gone." "But you're not gone." Richard squeezed my shoulder. "You're right here, and you're still one of the best architects I've ever known." Marcus made a choking sound. "Mom, you never told us you were an architect." I looked at my son, really looked at him, and felt something inside me crack. "You never asked." The words hung in the air like smoke. Jennifer recovered first, smoothing her dress with shaking hands. "Well, this is wonderful news, actually. Mr. Castellano, why don't we move to the dining room? Dinner's ready, and we can all talk about Mom's amazing career and about how you've been treating her like a servant?" Richard's smile was shark-like now. "Sure, let's do that." He offered me his arm. I took it, feeling Marcus and Jennifer's eyes burning holes in my back as we walked toward the dining room. The table I'd set so carefully looked different now. The polished silver, the perfect place settings, the expensive wine breathing at exactly 68 degrees. All of it felt like evidence of my own humiliation. Richard pulled out the chair at the head of the table, Jennifer's chair, and gestured for me to sit. "Eleanor's the guest of honor tonight," he said, voice pleasant but brooking no argument. "I insist." Jennifer's face cycled through 6 different emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, rage, calculation, fear. She grabbed the place cards with trembling hands and started rearranging them while Marcus stood frozen, probably doing the same math I was doing. How much does Richard know? How badly did we just screw up? And how the hell do we fix this before it destroys everything? Richard settled into the chair beside me, pulled out his phone, and started scrolling. "Here," he said, turning the screen toward Marcus. "The Chen Performing Arts Center, opening night, 2008. Your mother's name is on the dedication plaque. See?" Marcus leaned in. I watched the color drain from his face. "And here the Riverside Plaza project. International Architecture Award, 2011, Eleanor Chen, lead designer." Another photo, another plaque with my name etched in bronze. And this one's my favorite. Richard swiped again. The Morrison Medical Center. Your mother designed that entire complex, including the children's wing. She donated half her fee to the hospital's charity fund. Did you know that, Marcus? No, my son whispered. I didn't. Funny thing about family, Richard said, setting his phone down. You'd think you'd know the important things about them. The dinner Jennifer had planned so carefully was dying before it even started. The food sat untouched. The wine might as well have been water. And I sat there in my maid's uniform, at the head of the table, watching my son realize he didn't know his own mother at all. Richard leaned back, swirled his wine, and smiled that billion-dollar smile. So, Marcus, he said casually, you didn't tell me your mother was the Eleanor Chen, the woman who built half the architectural landmarks in this city before she vanished. Marcus's face drained of every last drop of color. And I knew exactly what he was thinking. How much does Richard know, and how badly did we just screw up? Jennifer's fork scraped against her plate, a sharp, grating sound that made everyone flinch. So, Eleanor, her voice was honey, sweet poison. You designed buildings. That's wonderful. Ancient history, of course, but wonderful. Richard set down his wine glass with a soft clink. Ancient history? He smiled. Interesting choice of words. Tell me, Jennifer, what do you consider ancient? 10 years? 15? I just meant that. Because Eleanor's Chen Tower design won the National Architecture Prize 17 years ago, and we still use it as the gold standard in our firm. Richard turned to me. You remember that project, don't you? The one where you somehow convinced the city council to approve a design they initially called impossible? I did remember. God, I remembered every sleepless night, every revised blueprint, every meeting where men twice my size told me my vision wouldn't work. I remember, I said quietly. She proved them all wrong. Richard looked at Marcus. Your mother has a gift for seeing possibilities where everyone else sees limitations. It's extraordinary, really. Marcus hadn't touched his food. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping. Mom, he said finally, why didn't you ever mention any of this? Because you never asked. Because you stopped seeing me as a person the day I moved in. But I couldn't say that. Not yet. It didn't seem important, I said instead. Not important? Richard laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Eleanor, you shaped this entire city's skyline. You pioneered sustainable design practices that firms are still trying to replicate. How is that not important? Jennifer was rearranging her asparagus with shaking hands. I'm sure it was very impressive at the time, but architectural trends change so quickly, and her work is timeless. Richard's voice could have cut steel. Which is why my board specifically requested her for our Singapore project. The words landed like a bomb. Marcus choked on his water. Actually choked, coughing and sputtering, while Jennifer pounded his back with increasing desperation. Singapore? She managed. What Singapore project? Richard leaned back, perfectly relaxed, like he hadn't just detonated a grenade in the middle of their carefully planned dinner party. We're breaking ground on a $200 million development in 6 months. Mixed use, sustainable design, the whole 9 yards. The board saw Eleanor's past work and insisted we approach her as lead consultant. He paused. I've been trying to track her down for weeks. Imagine my surprise when I found her here. Marcus's knuckles were white where he gripped his napkin. $200 million. Give or take. Richard shrugged like it was pocket change. Eleanor, I know you've been out of the game for a while, but your expertise is exactly what we need. The board is offering 7 figures for your consultation alone, not including design fees if you decide to come on as lead architect. 7 figures. I watched Jennifer do the math, watched her face cycle through shock, rage, and something that looked dangerously close to panic. That's amazing, Mom, Marcus said, voice strangled. Really amazing. But surely, Mr. Castellano, my mother would need time to consider. Of course, Richard smiled. Though I should mention the board specifically requested Eleanor because they want someone with her particular vision. Someone who understands how to blend commercial viability with artistic integrity. He paused, knife glinting in the candlelight as he cut his steak. They've made it clear that if Eleanor isn't available, They'll likely take the project to our competitor firm instead." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus's entire promotion depended on the Singapore project. I'd heard him on the phone enough times, desperate calls with his supervisor, promises that he could deliver, guarantees that Castellano Industries would be the firm to land this contract. And now Richard was saying the whole thing hinged on me. "I see." Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper. That's quite a position you're putting us in, sir." "Am I?" Richard raised an eyebrow. "I'm simply offering your mother a job, Marcus. Seems pretty straightforward to me." Jennifer's wine glass trembled in her hand. "Of course Eleanor wants to help, don't you, Mom?" "Mom." The word she'd never used before tonight. "I don't know," I said slowly. "It's been a long time since I worked on a project that size." "You never forget." Richard pulled out his phone again. "Look, here's the preliminary site plan. What do you think? What would you do differently?" He slid the phone across the table. I looked at the blueprints, basic, uninspired, safe. The kind of design a committee creates when they're more worried about not failing than about actually succeeding. My fingers itched. "The eastern exposure is all wrong," I heard myself say. "You'd get direct sunlight for 6 hours a day, which means massive cooling costs. And the public spaces are too isolated, they feel like afterthoughts instead of integral design elements." Richard's smile was genuine now. "Go on. If you rotated the main structure 15 degrees and integrated vertical gardens on the south face, you could cut energy costs by 30% while creating natural gathering spaces that flow into the commercial areas." I traced the design with my finger, seeing it all so clearly, the way the building could breathe, could become part of the landscape instead of just sitting on top of it. And if you added a green roof system with rainwater collection, you could... I stopped. Everyone was staring at me. "Sorry," I whispered. "I got carried away." "Don't apologize," Richard was beaming. "That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. Eleanor, you're brilliant. You've always been brilliant." Marcus looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Jennifer had gone pale, her expensive dinner congealing on her plate, while she stared at me with something that looked almost like fear, because they were finally understanding. The helpless old woman they'd been exploiting for 3 months was worth 50 times what Marcus would ever make. The maid they'd been ordering around could solve their biggest career problem with a single phone call. And they'd treated me like garbage. "The board meets next week," Richard continued, stabbing at his asparagus. "If you're interested, Eleanor, I could arrange for you to present your ideas directly. They'd be thrilled." "That's very kind," I started. "She'll do it," Marcus blurted out, leaning forward. "Mom would love to help with the project. Wouldn't you, Mom?" Now I'm Mom. Now I'm useful. "I need to think about it," I said. Jennifer's fork clattered to her plate. "Think about it? Eleanor, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You can't just..." "Can't I?" I looked at her directly for the first time all evening. "I've been out of the industry for 15 years, Jennifer. It's a big decision. But Marcus's promotion depends on..." She stopped, face flushing red. "I mean, this would be wonderful for the family. All of us." "The family," I repeated the word slowly. "Interesting that we're a family now." Richard was watching us with the sharp focus of a man who'd built a business empire by reading people. "Eleanor," he said gently, "have you been happy here, living with Marcus and Jennifer?" The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Marcus shifted in his seat. "Of course she's been happy. We've given her everything she needed." "Have you?" Richard's voice was soft, but there was steel underneath. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've given her a servant's room and a uniform and expected her to earn her keep through manual labor." "That's not fair," Jennifer snapped, then caught herself. "I mean, we were helping her get back on her feet. She needed structure, routine. She needed family." Richard's eyes were cold now. "She needed a son who remembered she was a person, not a burden." Marcus flinched like he'd been slapped. "Mr. Castellano, with all due respect..." "No," Richard cut him off. "I don't think you get to talk about respect right now, Marcus. Not when you've had your mother scrubbing floors while you climbed the corporate ladder on the foundation she built." The words hit like physical blows. I watched my son's face crumble, shame and anger and desperation all warring for control. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I didn't know about any of this." "You didn't ask." The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them. "Not once in 3 months did you ask me about my life before, my career, my accomplishments. You just saw a broke old woman who needed a place to stay." "Mom, you had me wear a uniform, Marcus." My voice cracked. "Your own mother. You made me wear a uniform so I'd look presentable when you had company." Jennifer made a small sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Richard leaned back in his chair, swirled his wine, and watched the whole thing implode with the calm detachment of someone who'd seen it all before. Then he smiled. "Eleanor," he said, voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "The Singapore project, the one worth $200 million, we could really use your expertise. And the board specifically requested you when they heard you might be available." Marcus choked on his water again. And I saw Jennifer do the math in real time. I wasn't just their maid anymore. I was her husband's only ticket to the promotion he'd been begging for. Richard left at 10 p.m. with promises to send contracts and a business card pressed into my palm like a lifeline. The door closed behind him, and the masks came off. "Mom," Marcus's voice cracked. "Mom, we need to talk." I was already heading toward my room, the tiny, windowless room that used to be their gym, but Jennifer blocked my path, mascara smudged, eyes wild. "Eleanor, please, just listen for a minute." "I'm tired," I said quietly. "It's been a long night." "A long night?" Jennifer's laugh was hysterical. You completely blindsided us. An architect? A famous architect? Why didn't you say something?" "When?" The word came out, sharper than I intended. "When should I have mentioned it, Jennifer? While I was scrubbing your toilets? Or maybe while you were inspecting my work with white gloves and telling me I wasn't good enough?" She flinched. "That's not fair, isn't it?" Marcus stepped forward, hands raised like he was approaching a wounded animal. "Mom, I know we haven't been. I know things haven't been perfect. But you have to understand we didn't know. If we'd known about your career, about your accomplishments, you would have treated me like a human being," I finished. "That's what you're saying? That I only deserve basic decency if I have money or power or something to offer you?" "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean, Marcus?" My voice was rising now. 15 years of grief and 3 months of humiliation finally breaking through. "Explain it to me. Explain why your own mother wasn't worth a conversation, wasn't worth asking how are you, or what did you used to do, or are you happy here?" Silence. Jennifer's hands were shaking. "We gave you a place to stay. You gave me a servant's quarters and a uniform. We didn't make you work. You offered to help around the house. Because I didn't want to be a burden." The words exploded out of me. "Because I could see it in your eyes every time you looked at me, this broke, pathetic old woman who'd lost everything. I thought if I made myself useful, if I earned my keep, maybe you wouldn't resent me so much." Marcus's face had gone gray. "Mom, we never—" "Don't." I held up my hand. "Don't lie to me now, Marcus. I've heard you on the phone. My mother's staying with us temporarily. It's a difficult situation. Hopefully she'll find her own place soon. I'm not deaf, and I'm not stupid." Jennifer was crying now, black streaks running down her face. "We were trying to help you. You showed up with nothing, no job, no savings, no plan. What were we supposed to do? Treat me like family instead of staff." My voice broke. "That's all I wanted. Just to feel like I mattered. Like I was more than a burden you were obligated to carry." The silence that followed felt like drowning. Marcus sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "I'm so sorry, Mom. God, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize, I didn't see." "No, you didn't." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the boy I'd raised, the son I'd sacrificed everything for, buried under layers of ambition and corporate polish. "When did you stop seeing me, Marcus? When did I become invisible to you?" "When Dad died." The words came out barely audible. "When you disappeared into yourself, and I didn't know how to reach you. I was scared, Mom. You stopped answering calls, stopped eating, stopped living, and I didn't know how to fix it, so I focused on work, on building a life, on pretending everything was fine. And when I showed up broke and broken 3 months ago..." He looked up, eyes red. "I saw someone who'd given up, someone who needed saving. I thought," his voice cracked, "I thought I was helping. By making me your maid? By giving you structure, purpose, something to do besides grieve. He wiped his face roughly. I know how it sounds. I know how it looks. But I genuinely thought I was helping you get back on your feet. Jennifer knelt beside him, her expensive yoga pants smudging on the floor I'd mopped this morning. We messed up. We know we messed up. But Eleanor, please, the Singapore project. There it is. I felt something cold settle in my chest. The real reason you're apologizing. That's not. Isn't it? I looked at her kneeling there, mascara, streaked and desperate, and felt nothing but emptiness. You don't care that you treated me like garbage, Jennifer. You care that I might have the power to destroy your husband's career. That's not true. Then tell me. I stepped closer. Tell me one thing you know about me. One real thing. Not she's Marcus's mother or she does the laundry well. Tell me something about who I am, what I care about, what I dream about. Her mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. You can't, can you? I looked at Marcus. Neither of you can, because you never asked. In 3 months, you never once asked me about my life, my past, my hopes for the future. I was just the old woman in the uniform who made your lives easier. Marcus stood up, pacing now, phone in his hand. Okay, you're right. We failed you. We were selfish and blind and cruel. But Mom, please, the promotion, the Singapore project, if you don't help me, I'll lose everything. 5 years of work, gone. My reputation, destroyed. They'll move me to a satellite office or worse. I know. He stopped pacing. You know? I've heard you on the phone for weeks, Marcus, promising your bosses you could deliver, guaranteeing the Singapore contract would come through. I know exactly what's at stake. Then you'll help me? Hope flickered across his face. You'll take the project? You'll work with Richard? I walked past them, toward my tiny room. Mom? Jennifer scrambled to her feet. Where are you going? To pack. The words fell like stones. Pack? Marcus's voice shot up an octave. What do you mean, pack? You can't leave, not now. I turned in the doorway. Yes, I can. But the Singapore project. Your career. This is your chance to come back. To be somebody again. I was always somebody, Marcus. The words came out quiet but firm. I just forgot for a while. You helped me remember. Jennifer grabbed my arm, nails digging in. Eleanor, please, be reasonable. Think about your future, your financial security. I am thinking about it. I pulled free gently. For the first time in 3 months, I'm thinking clearly. So you'll stay? You'll help us? I looked at them both, my son and his wife, standing in their perfect house with their perfect lives, finally realizing the maid they'd been ordering around held all the power. I'm taking Richard's offer, I said. The Singapore project, the consultation fee, all of it. But I won't be living here while I do it. Marcus's face lit up. That's fine, that's perfect. We can help you find an apartment somewhere close to the office. I already called Richard while you two were arguing in the kitchen. I pulled my phone from my apron pocket. He's arranged a corporate housing unit downtown. I move in tomorrow. The hope drained from Jennifer's face. Tomorrow? But we need to talk about this, make a plan, figure out how to salvage Marcus's career? I finished. That's what you mean, right? How to make sure I play nice with Richard so your meal ticket doesn't disappear. Mom, that's not... It's exactly what you mean. I pulled out my suitcase, the same battered suitcase I'd arrived with 3 months ago. And you know what? I'll probably help Marcus anyway. Not because you deserve it, but because I still love my son, even when he forgets I'm his mother. I started folding my 3 uniforms, my 2 pairs of jeans, the sweater with the hole in the elbow. Marcus appeared in the doorway. Mom, please, don't do this. Stay, we'll change, we'll be better, I'll be better. Will you? I looked up at him. Or will you just be nice to me until the Singapore project is finished and your promotion is secure? And then what, Marcus? Will I go back to being the burden you're obligated to carry? No, God, no. Mom, I swear. I don't believe you. The words hung between us like shattered glass. I want to believe you, but I don't. Jennifer pushed past Marcus, dropping to her knees beside my bed, actually on her knees, designer clothes and all, mascara running in black rivers down her face. Eleanor, I'm begging you, don't leave like this. We need you. Marcus needs you. The kids need their grandmother. The kids? I couldn't help the bitter laugh. Jennifer, your children don't even know I'm their grandmother. They call me the lady who makes breakfast. When's the last time you let me actually spend time with them? When's the last time I was allowed to be grandma instead of the help? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. That's what I thought. I zipped the suitcase closed. I'll be gone by morning. Richard's sending a car at 8. Marcus was pacing again, one hand pulling at his hair. This is insane. You're throwing away. We're your family. You can't just abandon us. The word hit like a slap. Abandon you? I turned slowly. Marcus, I spent 3 months invisible in this house. 3 months scrubbing and cooking and cleaning while you stepped over me like furniture. And now that I'm useful, now I'm abandoning you? I didn't mean. Yes, you did. I picked up my suitcase. It was lighter than when I'd arrived. I'd thrown away most of my things, hadn't needed much besides uniforms and exhaustion. You meant every word. Because in your mind, I owe you. You gave me a room and 3 meals a day, so I owe you my labor, my expertise, my entire future. That's not what I think. Isn't it? I walked toward the door, and they both scrambled out of my way. Then let me leave, Marcus. If you really care about me, if this isn't just about your career, let me go. He stood there, frozen, face cycling through a dozen emotions. Finally, Jennifer spoke. What are we supposed to tell people? What are we supposed to do? I stopped at the front door, the door I'd answered 100 times, the door where Richard had recognized me and changed everything. The family portrait hung on the wall beside it. Marcus, Jennifer, the kids, all smiling. And me, photoshopped into the far corner, barely visible, like an afterthought. I'd never noticed before how perfectly it captured the truth. Tell them the maid quit, I said quietly, and maybe learn to clean up your own messes. I opened the door. Behind me, Jennifer made a desperate sound. Eleanor, wait, what about Marcus's promotion? What about the Singapore project? You can't just… I turned back one last time. My son stood in the hallway of his perfect house, surrounded by everything I'd helped him build, the education I'd paid for, the values I'd tried to teach him, the love I'd poured into every moment of his childhood. And he looked at me like I was destroying his life by choosing my own. I'll work with Richard, I said. I'll consult on the Singapore project. I'll even put in a good word for you, Marcus, because you're still my son, and I still love you. I paused. But I won't live here. I won't be your maid. And I won't pretend these 3 months didn't happen. Mom? Goodbye, Marcus. I walked out into the night air, suitcase in one hand, Richard's business card in the other. The door closed behind me with a soft click. And for the first time in 3 months, maybe for the first time in 15 years, I didn't look back. The morning sun hit my office windows at exactly 7:15 a.m., turning the city skyline into liquid gold. I stood there with my coffee, watching the buildings wake up, and smiled. 6 months. That's how long it had been since I walked out of Marcus's house with nothing but a suitcase and a business card. 6 months since I remembered who I was. Eleanor, my assistant, a sharp young woman named Priya, knocked on the open door. The Singapore team is online too. They want to discuss the sustainability modifications you proposed. Tell them I'll call back in 10 minutes. I turned from the window. I have a meeting first. The 9 a.m. with your son? That's the one. Priya's expression didn't change, but I caught the flicker of curiosity in her eyes. Everyone at Castellano Industries knew the story by now, or at least the version that had made its way through the office gossip chain. The legendary Eleanor Chen found scrubbing floors in her own son's house. Can you imagine? I could imagine. I'd lived it. But that felt like a lifetime ago now. My office was everything I'd forgotten. I needed floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water, drafting table covered in blueprints, walls lined with architectural models of projects past and present. Richard had given me the corner suite, the one usually reserved for senior partners. You earned it 20 years ago, he'd said when I protested. I'm just correcting an oversight. The Singapore project had brought me back to life. Not just the work, though, God. The work. Designing again, creating again, seeing my vision transform from sketches into steel and glass and possibility, but also the purpose. The reason to wake up in the morning. The reminder that grief hadn't destroyed me, just buried me for a while. I'd bought a small apartment downtown, nothing fancy, but mine. 1 bedroom, a view of the park, enough space to breathe. No uniforms. No one telling me I'd missed a spot on the baseboards. Just me, finally learning to live again. My phone buzzed. Marcus, right on time. Downstairs. Is the offer still good? I smiled and typed back, coffee shop on the corner, I'll be there in 5. Marcus looked different. Thinner, maybe. Tired around the eyes. His suit was still expensive, but it hung on him like he'd forgotten to eat for a few weeks. He stood when I approached, awkward and uncertain. Hi, Mom. Hi, sweetheart. We sat across from each other, steam rising from our coffee cups, neither of us quite sure how to start. He'd been emailing for months, apologizing, explaining, begging for a chance to talk. The first 46 emails I'd deleted without reading. The 47th, the one where he didn't mention his career once, just said, I miss my mother, that one I'd answered. You look good, Marcus said finally. Happy. I am happy. The project's going well? Better than well. We break ground next month. I sipped my coffee. Richard's been incredible to work with. He actually listens when I talk. Imagine that. Marcus flinched. I deserve that. Yes, you did. Silence stretched between us, filled with 6 months of words unsaid. I got the promotion, he said quietly. Richard pushed it through last week. Said my mother's expertise on the Singapore project made me an invaluable asset to the company. His laugh was bitter. Funny how that works, isn't it? I spent 5 years trying to earn it, and in the end, it was your name that got me there. Is that why you wanted to meet? To tell me about your promotion? No. He looked up, eyes red, rimmed. I wanted to apologize. Really apologize. Not the desperate apologizing I did that night when I thought I was losing everything, but a real apology, from someone who finally understands what he did wrong. I waited. I treated you like you were invisible, Marcus said, voice cracking, like you stopped being a person when you stopped being successful. And I told myself I was helping you, giving you structure, purpose, a reason to get up in the morning. But really? He wiped his face roughly. Really, I was just ashamed. Ashamed that my brilliant, accomplished mother had fallen so far. Ashamed that my colleagues might find out I had a broke, grieving parent living in my house. The words hung between us like broken glass. So I made you into something I could manage, he continued. Not my mother, but the help. Someone who earned her place through labor instead of love. And I convinced myself it was fine because you weren't complaining, you were making yourself useful, you seemed fine. I wasn't fine, Marcus. I know. Tears were running down his face now, and he didn't bother wiping them away. I know, and I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so goddamn sorry. You deserved better. You deserved your son to see you, to ask questions, to care about who you were instead of just what you could do for him. I felt my own eyes burning. Jennifer left me, he said suddenly. 2 months ago. Took the kids and moved in with her mother. Oh, Marcus. She said I'd changed, become obsessed with apologizing to you, with fixing what I'd broken. She wanted me to just move on, pretend it never happened. He laughed bitterly. When I refused, she said I was choosing you over my family, like it was a competition, like I couldn't love both. I'm sorry. Don't be. He looked up. She was right about one thing. I have changed. Losing you, seeing what I'd done, understanding how badly I'd failed, it broke something in me, Mom. In a good way, maybe. I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago. Who are you now? I'm trying to figure that out. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. I brought this. I stared at the envelope without touching it. It's not money, Marcus said quickly. Well, it is, but not like that. It's a check for everything you contributed to the household over those 3 months. I calculated it: groceries, utilities, cleaning services, childcare, market rate for all of it. Marcus, I know you don't need it. I know you're making more than I ever will. But I need you to take it anyway. Please, let me pay back at least some of what I took from you. I looked at the envelope for a long moment. Then I slid it back across the table. Keep it, I said gently. Use it for therapy. or marriage counseling if Jennifer's willing, or a college fund for the kids. But I don't want it, sweetheart. His face crumpled. I don't know how to make this right. You can't. The words were hard but necessary. You can't undo those 3 months, Marcus. You can't erase the pain or the humiliation or the loneliness I felt in that house. It happened. It's part of our story now. Then what do I do? I reached across the table and took his hand. His hand that used to be so small in mine when he was a boy and I was his whole world. You keep showing up, I said. You keep trying. You keep learning who you are when nobody's watching. And maybe, eventually, we figure out how to be mother and son again. You're giving me another chance? I'm giving us another chance. I squeezed his hand. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. I'm not coming back. I'm not going to be your live-in grandmother or your backup child care or your way to impress your bosses. I have my own life now, my own career, my own apartment where nobody tells me I missed a spot. I understand. Do you? Because I need to know you see me as a person, not as a resource. I need to know that when we have coffee once a month, it's because you actually want to see your mother, not because you need something from me. I do see you. His voice was fierce now. God, Mom, I see you. Maybe for the first time in years I actually see you, and I hate myself for how long it took. Don't hate yourself. I pulled my hand back gently. Just do better. Be better. That's all I'm asking. He nodded, wiping his face with his napkin. Once a month? Once a month. I confirmed. We'll meet here, have coffee, talk about our lives. No business, no favors. Just a mother and son trying to figure out how to love each other again. I'd like that. So would I. We sat in silence for a while, drinking our coffee, watching the city move around us. How are the kids? I asked finally. Marcus's face softened. They ask about you, Tommy especially. He remembers the breakfast lady and wants to know where you went. Does he know I'm his grandmother? He does now. Marcus looked ashamed. Jennifer fought me on it, but I told them the truth, showed them pictures of you from when I was little. Explained that Grandma had been staying with us, and we'd treated her badly, and now she lives in her own apartment because that's what she deserves. How did they take it? Tommy cried, said he wanted to say sorry for not being nicer to you. Marcus's voice cracked. He's 7 years old, Mom, and he understood something I couldn't see at 34. I felt tears threatening again. Maybe I could meet them sometime, properly, as their grandmother, not the help. Really? Hope flickered across his face. You'd be willing to? Once a month? I said. After you and I have coffee, maybe you could bring them by for an hour. We could go to the park, or the museum. Somewhere neutral where we can just be family. I'd love that. They'd love that. Good, I smiled. Then that's what we'll do. My phone buzzed Priya, reminding me about the Singapore call. I have to go, I said, standing. Work calls. Marcus stood too, hesitating. Can I hug you? I opened my arms. He stepped into them, and suddenly he wasn't a 34-year-old executive in an expensive suit. He was my little boy again, the one who used to fall asleep on my shoulder after long days at the drafting table, who used to beg me to explain how buildings stayed standing. I love you, Mom, he whispered. I'm sorry it took me so long to remember how to show it. I love you too, sweetheart. I held him tight, then let go. But I have to go be brilliant now. The Singapore team doesn't wait for anyone. He laughed a real laugh, the first I'd heard from him in years. Go be brilliant. I'll email you next month to set up coffee. You better. I walked back toward my office building, heels clicking on the sidewalk, briefcase in hand. A woman passed me, did a double take. Excuse me, are you Eleanor Chen, the architect? I smiled. I am. Oh my God, I studied your Chen Performing Arts Center design in school. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You're a legend. Thank you. She hurried off, starstruck, and I stood there for a moment, watching the reflection in the glass doors. Gray hair pulled back in a professional bun. Tailored suit, confident stride. A woman who'd lost herself in grief, been buried in humiliation, and clawed her way back to the surface. Sometimes redemption isn't about grand gestures. Sometimes it's about a son finally seeing his mother as a person. And a woman remembering she was never just the help. I pushed through the doors and headed to my office, where blueprints waited and a $200 million project needed my expertise. Where my name, Eleanor Chen, was etched on the door in bronze letters, impossible to miss. Where nobody would ever make me feel invisible again.